guess it's recording already. I must have pressed a button.
There you go.
So
good to go.
Yeah, we don't have to talk to that, but
Okay. Yeah.
it's on. So,
All right.
So I'm Jeff.
All right. I'm Brett.
Good to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So yeah. So what? When I told you that question, I kind of saw like
Light bulb and thinking.
kind of a light bulb go off in your mind. Yeah.
I think it's a great question.
Yeah.
And I'm sure everybody's got their opinions.
Yeah.
I come from I believe in God. I'm not a super religious person, but I do believe in a higher being.
Yeah.
So I personally, I think it's I've got 2 kids. It's one of the most asked questions in the
kids ask that?
Kids ask all the time.
Really?
Right? What happens to you after
Have you had loved ones or grandparents, people pass away?
Unfortunately, grandparents. For me, very fortunate in that, in terms of no close friends, no mom or dad, but grandparents is as close, right?
Yeah.
And at that time, they're not really old enough to have that. But so now they're 14 and 10. But you're talking the last 5-6 years. Hey, what happens to you when you die? Yeah. And it's like nobody knows, but everybody's got an opinion, and you find yourself trying to actually being a parent. You don't want to mislead.
You want to be the one with the authority,
right?
The know-it-all.
Yeah,
right?
you don't, but you also don't want to mislead your kid. And I think that the answer is to be honest with you, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right? I think that I often wonder, do you come back? Do you come back in another form? Do you come back as as a different spirit? Do we just come back, get erased, and you're going right back into something else? But I do believe in the fact that you do the right thing and you're a good person. And that's the other question, is like, what happens if you're a bad person? Where do they go? Yeah. Right? So you get to that whole heaven and hell conversation. But
tell me if that falls over.
Oh, okay.
I guess it's wobbling a little bit.
Yeah. So I know it's not like an exact answer. I don't have something that I'm anchored into the ground on where I'm like, oh, I believe that, this and this, but I would say that I would lean more on the fact that I think that you can bury a body, right? Or cremate a body, but from a spirit or mental afterlife, I believe that I strongly believe that I'm going to be reunited with a dog that I miss, and my grandparents, and down the road, my mom and dad or loved ones, and I think it'll be a reunion.
Now, when you talk to your kids about it, do you come across as this is what I believe kind of thing?
Yeah.
I hope.
Right. I think that my personal opinion to my children is like, I can have an opinion, but I don't have fact. Yeah. Right. There's nobody that you can talk to that has a fact on this, but in the end, it's like, hey, use this, live your life to your fullest, be as good a person as you can, learn from your mistakes, and we're all hoping that next life is a greater one than the one we have.
Best.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
So let me ask you this: you believe in God, right? Mm-hmm. And so God, I'm talking like not a specific God maybe, but like the creator, creator that made us, and he would have made us for a reason. I would think this intelligent being made us and had a purpose for us. Obviously, we're not as smart as God. We don't know how we got here or where we're going, or like, who are we, right? And so, do you think it would be fair for that God to just expect us to figure it out ourselves? See what I'm saying?
Yeah. Good question. Never been asked it, and to be honest with you, never thought about it.
Yeah. So the alternative would be, okay, if we can't figure it out for ourselves, what if God revealed it to us in some way? Right?
Yeah.
And so it's more on God to say, okay, this is who I am. Maybe you can't understand. I don't believe I can ever understand everything about God. God is way too big for my puny little brain.
Right.
But I think God would be able to reveal what he wants me to know of him in order to have a relationship with him, with my creator,
Yep.
you know?
Yep.
And that's what the Bible says, is that we're made in God's image. You know, an image in a mirror, for example, is not the real thing.
Right.
So we're not God. We don't possess all the characteristics of God, but we some things are similar. I'm just gonna hold that like that.
Turn around towards the.
Oh, okay. Similar, but really, what it's, and then in the context of the rest of the Bible, what's similar is that we have enough of God's image in us to have a relationship with God. So, like, it shows God being angry.
Yeah.
We get angry.
Right.
You know, it
Right.
shows God being creative. Well, we can create. You
Right.
know,
Yep.
we can't create something out of nothing, but we have the ability to rearrange things.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and so you know, like, science is man's effort at figuring out, like, observing the universe
Right.
and how it's created.
Yeah.
The Bible, or other, you know, like, really for me it's the Bible, it's God's revelation, or in other words, revealing himself to us. And I can't learn everything there is to know about God from the first few chapters of the Bible. You know, it
Right.
takes, but I sure learn a lot more as I read it.
Right.
And I see how he interacts with people, and his history of being involved in human affairs.
Yeah.
And there's an interesting thing in the New Testament. It says faith pleases God. So in other words, trusting in him pleases him, and in order to trust in him, we need to, number one, believe that he exists, which you've already said you believe,
Yep.
and that he's a rewarder of those who seek him. I don't know if you're seeking him, but you do believe he's a rewarder. Like, in other words, what you said is,
I think there's different versions of people that seek him, right? I mean, I believe that if you want to go to church on every Sunday, and that's what I think, that's perfectly fine. But I also don't see it as any different as the person that doesn't go to church, that isn't having even conversations on their own, or you know, a prayer, or driving down the road thinking bigger thoughts and not having somebody to talk with. So I think in general, I think that there's
different ways to seek him.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I would encourage you, you know, like, to seek him through the Bible, and at least, you know, like, have you read it much, or?
Nope.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going,
it's a big book too.
Big book. You're going back to Sunday school as a kid, and I use a lot of that time that, I mean, work a lot, right? But it's working on a farm on that Saturday, Sunday type scenario, where it's like, that's good for me. I enjoy that, and my grandma and grandpa. My grandma always went to, religious, into church. My grandpa never did, but it wasn't because my grandpa would always say, he's like, you know, it's God's day.
Yeah.
But if God's got cattle, he's also got to still feed them. So he's like, he's not skipping feeding his cattle on his day. So
I worked on my cousin's dairy farm for a couple summers, and they were very religious in going to church, but they sure worked hard on Saturdays to make it so that they had to do very little on Sundays.
Correct.
So there's like the bare minimum.
You can think that you can plan as much as you want to with farm animals, but
you still got to. It was a dairy farm too, so I mean, you can't not milk the cows.
And we're beef. So
okay. Yeah. So another thing about that, so like the Bible teaches was something called general revelation. So in other words, God reveals himself to us in a general way, just by, like, if you look at a house that's made of bricks, you know there were bricklayers there. Well, what's revealed to you, the order that you see the bricks laid in, you know they didn't just suddenly appear.
Right.
So we learn a lot from nature. You know, we know from creation there's a creator, and it might seem like chaos, but the more scientists, like study nature, the more they realize it's all ordered, you know.
It's controlled chaos.
And like the laws of nature, like if there's laws, there must be a lawgiver,
Correct.
And so we know in a general way, God's, that there's a creator, and we can learn some things about God. The Bible would be considered specific revelation. In other words, what did God specifically reveal to man about himself, about like he came to the earth in the form of his son Jesus? What can we learn about God through his life and what he said and all that sort of thing? So that's where I think, like, there's a story about a guy, he's an old sea captain, and he's kind of trying to refute someone who's trying to say to read the Bible. So he says, I know what I need to know about my creator by going down to the seashore and smelling the breeze and everything, right?
Right.
If you go down to the seashore, I always go to like North Carolina, where it's like, if you go straight, I know across that horizon, I'm going to hit Africa, right?
Yeah.
But the only way I know that is because I've looked at maps. See what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so it's like we can learn a certain amount from nature about God, just like we can learn a certain amount of the ocean from going down to the seashore.
Right.
But unless we look at maps and we look at, like study what other people have discovered,
correct,
we're not going to know the specifics.
Right. Experiences are different than even self-education.
Yeah. Or just learning from what other people have learned too. So that's where I look at also at reading the Bible and studying, doing our homework that way, in addition to the general revelation that you get from nature.
Yeah.
So I appreciate your time. I don't know if you're in a hurry, but
not in a hurry at all. But thank you very much.
Yeah.
Very nice to meet you. And
I'll turn this off, and I'd like to ask, like, if I can pray for you, real quick.
Absolutely.
Something. So
absolutely.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.